Alright, so in this session I'm going to show you the fundamentals of solving quadratic equations. So we're going to start with a very simple one. I'm going to start with an equation whereby the coefficient of x squared is 1. We're going to look at how we can actually solve it. So if you have an equation like this one here, x squared plus 3x plus 2, if we have to solve it, there are two ways we can actually solve this equation. One method is trying to factorize it and forming two brackets, and the second method is actually using the quadratic equation. However, the quadratic equation is usually reserved for equations we can't solve by hand, so equations whereby we can't actually form two brackets. So how do we try to form two brackets? What you do is you physically draw the two brackets, okay, like this, and then you take the constant which is at the end of the equation, which is 2 here. So you can write 2 in the corner like I'm doing right now, and then think about two numbers which multiply to give you 2. So basically think about what are the factors of 2. So the factors of 2 are actually 1 and 2 because you do 1 times 2 to get 2. Now, if you're factorizing a quadratic equation, in these two brackets you're going to write expressions which will multiply to give you the original one. Now the trick to factorize a quadratic equation is that we know that both expressions should start with x because x times x gives you x squared, and we're trying to figure out what these two numbers will be here. And a formula or a small trick which you can learn, which will help you to factorize this equation, is that once you've taken the constant and you've broken it down into its factors, what should happen is that these two factors, they should multiply to give you the last digit. So 1 times 2 gives you 2. And these factors should add up to give you the middle number, which is 3. So we can see here that if we break down the 2 in terms of 1 times 2, 1 times 2 gives us 2, which is the last digit here, and 1 plus 2 gives me 3, which is the middle digit. So the answer would be x plus 1 and x plus 2. So this will be the factorized form of x squared plus 3x plus 2. And if you have to solve now, you write down x plus 1 equals 0 or x plus 2 equals 0. And then you try to make x a bigger formula. So you get x equal to minus 1 and x is equal to minus 2. All right. Just to consolidate this idea, we're going to try another equation. So I'm going to try x squared plus 4x plus 3. So just like in the first one, what we do is we take the last digit, which is plus 3, and then we think of factors of 3. So factors of 3 will be 1 and 3. All right. Now 1 times 3 gives me 3, the last digit, which is good. But does 1 plus 3 give me 4? Yes, 1 plus 3 gives me 4. So here we can see that we've already got the factors because 1 times 3 gives me the last digit, which is 3, and 1 plus 3 is 4. So the factors will be x plus 1 and x plus 3, and then you try to solve the equation once again. So x plus 1 is equal to 0, x will be minus 1, and x plus 3 equal to 0, x will be minus 3. All right, so these two questions were relatively easy ones, whereby we're just taking the last digit and we're trying to find the factors of the last digit. And once we've got the factors, what we do is that we check whether when we're multiplying the two numbers, we're getting the last constant here. And when we're adding these two, we're getting the middle one. So that's the basic form of actually factorizing quadratic equation. What we can do now is we're going to look at one whereby it's not that easy to actually solve it. Okay, so let me just erase the top part, and then we're going to work with another equation whereby we actually can't break down the constant to get to numbers. Okay, then we'll need to try something else. All right, so let's try that. I'm going to write down this equation. So 6x squared plus x minus 15. All right, so that's the new quadratic equation. And none of the things I've taught you before actually will work, because the first two equations had as coefficient of x squared 1. Okay, the first equation, if you remember, was x squared plus 3x plus 2, and the second one was x squared plus 4x plus 3. This one starts with a 6, so none of the things we've learned actually will work. Now, what I propose we do when it comes to solving such equations is actually using something I call the triangle method. So what is it? What you do is that you create a small triangle whereby you take the coefficients of the equation and then you try to form a small triangle. I'm going to show it here. So I'm going to take the coefficient of x squared, which is 6, write it here. The coefficient of x is 1. I'm going to put it up. Coefficient, not coefficient, but the last constant is minus 15. So I sort of create a small triangle here. So 6, 1, and minus 15. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write down the factors of 6. So factors of 6 can be 3, 2, 6, 1, 1, 6. Okay. Let's say we start with 6, 1. And then factors of 15, we can say 3 and minus 5. Now, when we use the triangle method, what should happen is that when we cross multiply and we add the results of the cross multiplication, we should get the top one. So does it work here? If I do 6 times minus 5, I get minus 30 plus 1 times 3, 3. And that's minus 27. So it doesn't work because I'm supposed to get number 1. So what I suggest you do is that you work it out with a pencil when you actually use the triangle method, and you can actually anticipate what might work while writing down the factors. So this is what I'm going to do now. So 6 will be 3 and 2. All right. Now, minus 15 would be 5, negative 3, or 3, negative 5. So where should I place the numbers so that they work? So let's say I put 3 and 5 here, and I need to put a minus. 3 times minus 5 is minus 15, plus 6. It doesn't give me 1. So we already know that it's not going to work. But what if we switch it around? What if I write 5 here and negative 3 here, so that when I cross multiply, I get 2 times 5, 10, 3 times negative 3 minus 9, and suddenly, yeah, it gives me 1. So we can see that after playing with it a bit and trying a couple of different alternatives, so for example, I suggest that you do that with a pencil, we end up getting the middle number. So now we've got the right numbers. Now how does that transfer to the expression? So let's say that was an equation equated to 0. How do we transfer this information to here? So the number here is actually the number in front of the x, because you remember that we always had x plus the number, then x plus another number. So this 3 here is the coefficient in front of the x. So I can read it as 3x, and I'll read it in the horizontal way now. So it's 3x plus 5. And then the second equation is 2x negative 3. Okay, so that's how I was able to factorize it. Then you do normal equation solving. So 3x plus 5 equals 0. X will be minus 5 over 3, and 2x minus 3 equals 0, so x will be 3 over 2. And this is how we'll solve this equation. All right, so these were the basics of quadratic equation solving. Next time I'm going to show you how to actually solve a quadratic equation, but using the quadratic formula now. All right.